Staying with the story, former Presidential Spokesperson Mac Maharaj joins us on the line. A very good morning to you. I should imagine, considering your history with that great man, that must have hurt to hear this news.
Good morning to you and your listeners. This is indeed a sad day for South Africa. Our deepest condolences go to George Bizos' family. Their loss is our loss. But we would urge them to take comfort because George's name is enrolled in the register of those who stood up and served to rid our country of apartheid. He came to our country as a 12-year-old, accompanied by his father to take refuge in South Africa. They fled Greece to avoid the Nazi jackboots. And George found a life in South Africa seized with fighting the same ideology of Nazism dressed as apartheid. During apartheid, many in the legal profession, dressed in their somber gown of justice, betrayed justice. But George's life remained anchored in his hatred for injustice. He made his mark in the Rivonia trial, not only as a great lawyer, but as a wise counselor. When Mandela prepared his address to the court, ending with the statement that he was prepared to die for his beliefs, the lawyers, George, Bram Fisher, Arthur Chaskelson, Joe Joffe, admired his stand, but they feared that it could be seen by the court as a provocation. And so they urged Mandela to change his statement. But Mandela was immovable. And it was the wise counsel of George that he accepted when he inserted the preface to his statement with the statement, "If needs be, I'm prepared to die." George became more than a colleague to Mandela. He became Mandela's confidant. And he has become a renowned human rights activist. But in my view, he is more. He became a combatant for human rights.
Yeah, Mac, Maharaj, what was he to you? What sort of person did you see behind all that action in court and his human rights passion? What was he? What sort of man was he?
George, I had the direct experience of George's bravery and courage. At the end of the Rivonia trial, the climate was such that we could not find lawyers to defend us when we were arrested and charged in the apartheid court. At the level of attorneys, there were only two in Johannesburg, Ruth Heyman and Joel Joffe. At the level of advocates, there was such a tiny number, and George was one of the few. So that he appeared in my court case, in which I was charged with brutal inquiry and others, as our defense lawyer. It required immense courage. And years later, after I came out of prison, in fact, after 1990, I had occasion to sit with George and chat about his life. And he confided a painful experience where the harassment had reached such a point that he felt he was going to break. He felt despair. And he felt he had to get away from the country. Through all sorts of intercession, the apartheid government gave him a passport. And he went abroad. And at a hotel on the balcony, I think it was Spain or Portugal, he recounts telling me that he stood on that balcony feeling that he had painted his life by accepting that. And he wanted to commit suicide. It was a characteristic of him that he always interrogated his own conscience to ensure that he could remain steadfast to the cause. This is not a new problem for people who lived and struggled against apartheid. Often we were forced to take parts, that our only corrective would be for us to question ourselves in the courtroom of our conscience so that we did not end up compromising our lives. That happened to me and others when we had to endure torture and imprisonment. George never went into prison, but he endured the same pangs and he endured the same challenges. He remained a person with great human warmth. The last time I met George, was at Liddy's Leaf Farm at a conference on Umkhonto we Sizwe. He was there with a walking stick, unsteady on his feet, and the two of us found time to sit on the bench and have a quiet chat. But I could see that here was a man proud of what he had done, but still pained by the errors and mistakes that we were committing. And yet, he remained with confidence about the future because he believed that the cause of human freedom would triumph in our country. That was George I knew. He was also a passionate gardener. Whenever I visited him at his farm, there he was in his tracksuit, tending to his garden. And I asked him, what's it all about? Is it simply about wanting fresh vegetables? And he told me it was one of his greatest relaxations to be in touch with nature. That was George. He remained true to the realization that we as human beings are not above nature, but we are part of nature. And therefore, if he had added the energy and still more life to him, he would be at the forefront of the challenge against climate change.
Mac Maharaj, very good to talk to you. Thank you.